Hey, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Panner. Any of those you want to call me, you can. This is if I could only keep one palette from each brand. And of course, as the name suggests, I'm not including any palettes that I only own one from that brand. And I also took inspiration from Steph from It's Just Steph, who she'll be linked in my description box. I really liked how Steph did this video because she only picked brands that she had at least 3 palettes from, and I like that because one, it'll make the video a lot shorter because I have less brands to talk about. Two, I feel like it's one thing to buy multiple palettes from a brand that shows that you probably like it, but if you buy another and another and you keep going back to that brand, then it means that you really love the quality, so it's not like just a one-off. So that would make it even harder to choose from those palettes because you clearly really like this brand if you have at least 3 palettes from it. And then also the choosing part will be harder because then you have more to say goodbye to. But this isn't real, of course. I'm not getting rid of any of these palettes, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to do this today. I had a little bit of time on my hands and I was really bored, so I'm gonna sit here with my iced coffee and pick some palettes. I haven't chosen any of these ahead of time, so this is gonna be like live decisions. If you have an iced coffee too, grab it. I got this one for free because they accidentally made a mistake on my order. So yeah, get a little drink or a little snack. Let's choose some palettes. I guess I'll start with ABH because I have like the largest palette in my collection and it's kind of screaming at me. So the 3 palettes that I have from Anastasia Beverly Hills is the Norvina Pro Volume 5. I guess I'll open all of these up as well. I featured this palette a few times this year because I did a palette bingo with this, and this was also in my No Pan Left Behind series, I think in May. So I've used this a lot recently and I've shown it a lot, so this is what this looks like just in case you haven't seen those videos. I have the original Norvina, which looks like this. I'm sure everyone and their mother knows what this looks like because this was such a popular palette, and especially in the panning community, this is a really popular palette to pan. Last and most recently, just literally this past month, I also have the ABH Rose Metals palette. I bought this when it was 50% off last month in June, and this is, I guess I can hold it right side up because the mirror is frosted still. Oh, should I peel the mirror off? Okay, I'm not good at these like satisfying things, but let me try to peel the mirror off on camera. Okay, here's the corner. I'm really failing at this. I could never be one of those ASMR people. Okay. Can you see it? Was that satisfying? I hope it was. But yeah, this is what the Rose Metals palette looks like. I have only used one shade in this so far, so I have yet to use the whole thing, but I'm still really excited about it. Okay, I wasn't thinking this was gonna be hard, but this is actually kind of hard because okay, I absolutely love the like original Norvina palette. This is like, I already had this in my No Pan Left Behind series this year, and when I got it, and I got this like very end of 2021, I loved it then. I still love it now, and I just, you know what, oddly I love this for the neutrals. Like, I do appreciate the colors in here, but the neutrals are just like, I feel like that is where ABH shines, in their neutral colors. I especially love this shade, Dazzling. That's like my favorite shade in this entire palette, and I just think it's so cute and it's simple and it's really easy to work with. Like, the quality, it's not like the best quality in the entire world that I've ever tried, but the quality is really good, and for like just super pretty but super easy looks, this is a really great go-to palette, and it's one of the palettes that like sparks joy in me. Like, whenever I see this, I just feel happy, so I wouldn't want to part with this. On the other hand, it would be incredibly difficult to part with my Norvina Pro Volume 5 because I love purple, especially purple eyeshadow. That's like, and purple makeup in general is like my favorite makeup. Like, I could do a completely monochromatic makeup look, from like eyeshadow to lips to blush, and I would love it. And this is just like a purple lover's dream. It doesn't have all the purples, but you do have like so many shades to choose from, and it has more than just purple. Like orange is my favorite color, and it has a few oranges in here. So I feel like just for the sheer amount of options and the fact that it's like my favorite makeup color, that would be something I would really want to keep. In theory, I really should keep the Rose Metals palette because these are like my colors. I took a test online and I always assumed I was a deep autumn, but when I took the test, it confirmed I'm a deep autumn, and that's pretty much like more or less what these colors are. These are just like earthy autumnal shades, which is why I was so drawn to this palette and why I wanted to buy it. I just haven't used this completely, so I don't know exactly how I feel about this palette, so it didn't really get a fair shot in this. Okay, I'm just going to make a split decision because I'm taking way too long on this and I feel like I really can't decide. In this exact moment, I would have to say, in, you know, an upset probably, I would keep the original Norvina palette because I just like, if I had to get rid of these two, honestly, it would probably, in like everyday life and as far as practicality, I should pick one of these two palettes because these are my tones and this has the most variety. But if I thought about like what in my heart I would really want to keep, it's this one. So yeah, I would keep the original Norvina. That took way too long. So moving on to Colourpop. I have actually more palettes from Colourpop than I thought I did. Well, first I have the Avatar: The Last Airbender palette.
Really, really beautiful. Here's the outside sleeve, and then here's the cover. It is so, like, the art alone. Here's, like, the inside of the palette, too. There's Appa. I love Appa so much. I was sad I didn't get the Appa mirror. It sold out. But anyway, this is what the shades in the palette look like, and they have that cool, embossing, is that what it's called? Where they, like, stamp the imprint on it. Yeah, it's a really beautiful palette, especially, like, the packaging. The packaging is my favorite part, if I'm gonna be honest.
And then I have 4-9 palettes from Colourpop. So I have the Lucky Penny palette, which, of course, when they do these plastic palettes with this stuff that, like, scratches off immediately after you open it, I hate when they do that. That's why I love cardboard packaging. But anyway, this is the Lucky Penny palette, and I've actually used this so much because it was in my The Office project pan. So I already have a pan in the shade Hit It Big right here. And this is what it looks like. Very, very warm browns and a few oranges in here, which is kind of like right up my alley if this was 3 years ago. Then just a straight up orange palette, Big Poppy, which I also love this for the packaging. And like I say, even if I got rid of this palette, I would still keep the packaging and just put different shades in here because I love it so much. But this is what the palette looks like, monochromatic orange mattes. I have the Wild Child palette. This was also in a project, and while it was, oh, I also didn't peel off this one. I'll save that for a different video. While this was in my That's So 2000s project, I realized I didn't like these two shades. This one was a pressed glitter and this one was a matte with glitter in it. Terrible, terrible formula. I don't know why they keep doing that. Everything else though I really like, other than the fact that they have two deep browns. Even though they're different finishes, I don't really like when companies do that. It's like, be original. Last, and also my most recent Colourpop palette purchase, is my Fresh Greens from Target. I think this is like a Target exclusive palette. This is what it looks like, and I have used all of these in their entirety, so I know what all of these are like, how they perform and everything. And this was most recently in my, I think it was my April No Pan Left Behind, so this is the one I've most recently used. And you know, I do love greens so much. Like, I would say purple is my favorite makeup for like all over the face. Like, I love purple everything. But if we're talking about like just eyeshadow, green is definitely my favorite eyeshadow specifically. So You know, I do have a lot of points for this palette. I'm gonna go with the Last Airbender palette. I already knew I was gonna pick this even before I started this video, just because I bought this because I love the cartoon version, like the original version of The Last Airbender so much. I watched it as a kid, loved it. I watched it as an adult, loved it. It is such a good show for like all ages. It's like, okay, I'm not going to talk about the show too much because this is already a long video, but yeah, I love this because of the nostalgia and also because of the packaging. As I said, it is so incredibly beautiful and just something that I will definitely keep forever, even after the palette expires. I'm gonna have it as a little display piece. I think I'll do my Kaja stacks. I almost forgot I had these because I keep them in like my eye drawer and not with my palettes, but I have the Forest Night, which, okay, let me open these up first. This is the darkest base color, which is a matte with glitter, which I don't like, but this is like much finer glitter. It's not that chalky dusty one that Colourpop has. But anyway, this is the like shimmer color, and then this is the like metallic punchy color. So that's what Forest Night looks like. This is Mauve Bouquet. Oh, I think the pan in this one, like this pan on top is falling out, so I'm gonna be careful with this, but that's what that looks like. This is the metallic, and then this is the matte. I also have Spiked Ginger, which is this as the deep matte, this as the metallic, and then this is the light matte, but I would just use this as a setting shade. I've actually never used this one before though. Okay, we have another satisfying ASMR moment. I hope I'm not being weird when I do that stuff, but out of all of them, I feel like, okay, it's definitely between Mauve Bouquet and Forest Night, because even though this is like fine, first of all, I've never used it, which again, that's unfair to this one, but I feel like because I would only use this top shade as a lid setting shade, there's like no versatility at all in this palette, so, or this stack, so not keeping this one. I think between these two, I do like the quality of this one slightly better, because I feel like the brown matte in here doesn't blend out the best, but I think I still would pick Forest Night to keep, because this one is just very, even though it looks like it would be kind of deep on my skin tone, it just turns out to be a very light color no matter what I do. And with this one, at least I do get some depth with this, and then I can choose to either just wear this like metallic, or I can add some color with this, like, it's like kind of a different type of gold. It's like sometimes it looks slightly green, sometimes it looks slightly like frosty, sometimes it looks like brownish. So I really like the shades in here, so I would keep Forest Night if I had to keep one of my Kaja stacks. Now on to Natasha Denona, and I have 3 palettes from this brand. The first one that I bought was the Mini Star. I feel like you already know my thoughts on this if you've ever watched any of my videos talking about my palettes. I have the iconic Metropolis palette, here it is, and then I have the Baby Bronze palette. So it's just a little 3-pan. It's a baby palette. I definitely would not keep this because it's, well, first, okay, there are a lot of reasons. I'll probably fast forward this part because I'm about to ramble.
But if you've seen any of my videos talking about Natasha Denona, you'll know that I only really like her cream to powder formula. Everything else is pretty much, in my opinion, trash, like overpriced trash, because her neutrals never really work very well. They just never show up true to color, and her dark browns go on patchy but also fade away. So just in general, her neutral mattes do not work well, and then I feel like her like shimmer metallic formulas are nothing special. You could get that with any brand, like even drugstore brand, it's pretty much, sorry, there's a glare, but you could pretty much get the same formula with any brand under the sun that's like lower quality. So neutrals, nothing great. Metallic shimmers, nothing special. The only formula, like I said, that's worth anything is the cream to powder, but that's not necessarily because of her brand. I think all cream to powder formulas are just inherently good, unless you really mess it up, like Sephora brand cream to powder. Best cream to powder formula I've ever tried, even better than Natasha Denona. I love the Huda Beauty cream to powder formula. So I think for what she is, or like for what her products are, incredibly overpriced. So I definitely wouldn't be keeping an all neutral palette from her. And then also, I've never even used this palette. The first time I opened it up out of its packaging and opened this flap, the plastic on the hinge completely broke off. So it's already been broken from the first time I ever even opened it. So poor quality eyeshadow formula, poor quality packaging for, I think this was like $19 that I paid for it. And then also, I don't like her ethics. So definitely not picking this one.
We know I do not like the mini star because, again, like I said, this doesn't show up true to color. This one is patchy and fades away after like a few minutes of wear. This is one of the worst duochrome shades I've ever tried. I think it's supposed to be like a blue to purple or like a blue to a brown, something like that, but it really doesn't show up at all unless you put it on top of a super dark base. And why would I want to be doing that? There isn't even one in this palette because this does not show up to be even as dark as it is in the pan. And then we have these two shades here. This one is pretty, but it's just nothing special, and this one is also pretty, but it's like a color that I wouldn't wear too often, so not picking this. And based on my descriptions, of course it would have to be the Metropolis palette that I would choose to keep if I could only keep one from this brand, simply because it has those cream to powder formula shades, and I really like that formula just in general, so I definitely would be keeping this one. It also offers a lot of variety. This has so many different shades in here that even though not all of them are the cream to powder formula that I like, just to have them, like there's some colors in here that I don't have anywhere else in my entire eyeshadow collection, so I would also want to keep it for that. So this is what I would keep. Since I mentioned Sephora, I'll just talk about it right now. So this is the cream to powder palette that I was talking about that I love so much from Sephora, and this was $14. I even got it on sale for $11. And this is the I Love Bloom Dahlia palette from Sephora, which I talk about all the time. I know you've seen this if you've ever watched my channel. This is a completely cream to powder formula palette. Every shade in here is a cream to powder, and every shade in here is incredibly beautiful and performs perfectly. This is like my go-to travel palette in the spring or in the fall. I love this so much because of not only the formula but the versatility in this palette for being such a small palette. Then we have the Sephora Southwest Sunrise, which was actually the first eyeshadow palette I ever purchased, and I've talked about this quite a bit. I originally bought it for this blue-brown shade because I was really into that type of duochrome when I first started getting into makeup, but it's not really a good blue-brown shade at all. But I have used this a few times since purchasing it and like really learning how to do eyeshadow, and I've come to appreciate what it has other than that one shade. But I will admit, this is definitely not my favorite Sephora palette, so spoiler, it's not going to be this one. Then we have the palette that I'm actually wearing on my eyes today, and that is another one of their I Love palettes, and this is the I Love Medium Cool eyeshadow palette. I'll talk about this more in my No Pan Left Behind update, but I actually really like this palette. This was the first time I'd ever used this palette while it was in this project in July, so I was happily surprised. I don't know why I assumed it wasn't going to be good, because I'm always the one saying that people always underestimate Sephora eyeshadow, so I was kind of like being a hypocrite a little bit. But this is really good quality. Unfortunately, again, it's not made anymore because Sephora does that thing where they like bring out a really great product and then discontinue it, but this is actually up there. Then I have two playlist palettes from Sephora. So this is the Disco Diva, and this is the like purplish one. So this is what it looks like. It's like all different undertones of just different purple shades, and then we have like a nude lid setting shade. And then this is the Blues Beauty, which was one of my palettes for my Pan That Palette series last year. And I have a pan in this shade right here, if you can see it. And then I did take the blue out because I didn't like it, but once I took the blue out, I love this palette so much. It's a palette that I just use all the time. This was not in any project, but I used it just a few days ago to go with the look that I did. I use this all the time, and it's one of my favorite palettes just for versatility and just being a really great companion palette. If I could only choose one, it would definitely come between my Blues Beauty and my Dahlia. This is really difficult, to be honest, because this is like my OG favorite palette. This was like my favorite palette in my entire collection. I would always use this. I loved it so much. This was in my top 10 palettes that I would keep if I could only keep 10. So I'll link that video down below as well, actually. Yeah, I just love this palette so much, and it has so many fond memories because I bring it with me traveling so often. But I've also appreciated this palette so much because of how much I've used it, being one of my Pan That palettes. And this is like really helpful anytime I'm doing a cool tone look and I don't really have any mattes to pair with it. I immediately reach for this palette. If I could only keep one, I think it would be the Dahlia palette, just because it is such great quality with like the all cream to powder shadows, which is my favorite type of eyeshadow formula, and just the fact that I can bring it with me traveling pretty much everywhere. It has like different types of, I can do like a very simple neutral look, or I can do something deeper for nighttime, or I can do like that red berry color. So it just offers so much versatility for travel, and I love the formula. So I would pick the Dahlia palette. Let's move on to the other palette I had in from my Pan That palette last year, and that will be the Sigma Ambiance and my other two Sigma palettes, which is the Earthy palette and the Ivy palette. So this is what Ivy looks like. It's kind of an odd palette. Before I bought it, like, I really didn't expect it to look like this. I think the product photography was a little bit off, to be honest, and I was expecting it to look different. I thought this was gonna be like a matte forest green, and it's clearly a navy. I still get a lot of use out of, well, not a lot, but I still get fairly good use out of this palette because I have had it in projects before and I was always able to hit my goal. So I don't dislike this palette at all, or else it wouldn't be in my collection anymore, but it is a bit of an odd palette, I have to admit. The colors don't really mesh well together. Then we have the Sigma Earthy palette, which I love so much. I talk about this palette like whenever I can. I kind of like always feature this palette whenever I talk about anything green, or when I talk about things for like special occasions. I talk about the Sigma Earthy. I love this so much. It's like the brown and green palette of my dreams, and Sigma has a great formula, so there's that too. Great formula and a great color story, and it's so compact. The only thing is it doesn't have a mirror. Then we have the Sigma Ambiance, which I've used this so much. I have I have 3 pans in this, but I have some really good dips in other shades. It was in my No Pan Left Behind series for June, and I was able to expand some pans. I was able to learn how to use this palette in different ways than I had even used it the entire year of 2023, and I just love this palette so much. So even though I absolutely love the Earthy palette, I would keep this palette. This is something that I would even repurchase once I have to declutter it for whatever reason. Maybe if I used up a shade, or if this went bad, I definitely would repurchase this palette if it was still available at that time. I love it so much, and now that I've used it in so many different ways, and really I've seen its versatility and just the fact that it's such an easy everyday palette as well, yeah, I don't think I could ever part with this palette. Okay, so it's half an hour later. I took a little bit of a break, but I repowdered. I probably still look really shiny and sweaty, but yeah, I propped my phone up with my usual setup now, so we should be back in business, and we have 4 more brands to talk about. I think I'll do a drugstore brand, and this is the only drugstore brand that I still am willing to buy eyeshadows from, and that's e.l.f. Cosmetics. I have 5 eyeshadow palettes from e.l.f., 4 of their bite-sized quads, and 1 of their old palettes that they used to do. This is the rose gold one. I don't know if they're still available, but anyway, if you're watching my Project Level Up series, which I'll link in my description box, I am panning all of my e.l.f. palettes for that project. So this is like the year of e.l.f. and I've used, so far in the project, I've gotten to all of them except for this one, so I've been pretty familiar with these palettes. I also did have this inner project at like the very end of last year, very beginning of this year, so I used it fairly recently relative to some of these palettes. So this is the rose gold nude. It's literally just a purple and pink eyeshadow palette, and then it has like some rose gold shades, but they're like pink tone golds. Then I have the Truffles Bite Size Quad. Here's the Hot Jalapeno. Oh, there I am. Here's the Hot Jalapeno Quad, my most recent one that I was panning. Sorry, I'm getting texts. Apparently there's some exciting news. But anyway, this is the Pumpkin Pie Quad, which is my most recent level, level 3. Oh, I dropped it. And then the one that I'm currently on, level 4, is my Cream and Sugar that I can't get open. Okay. This is what this looks like, and I just filmed that update a few days ago, so you're not seeing any spoilers.
I genuinely really love these bite-sized quads. Some of them, I will say, some vary in quality. Like I always say this, the truffles and the hot jalapeno are really good quality. These are only $3 and they're just amazing. So if you don't have these and you wanted to try them, get these two. They're so good, especially if you like cream. The Cream and Sugar, it's fine quality. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just nothing special. This Pumpkin Pie Quad is just a little lower than average. There is something to be desired in the mattes, but I still definitely made it work throughout all of level 3, and I enjoyed it. The orange creamsicle, or the orange whatever, the orange palette in this line, do not get it. It was trash. I had to declutter it after only using it twice. It was really bad.
But then I also have the Rose Gold Nude. I got this as a free gift with purchase. I never had this on my radar, and then I put it in a project to use at No Pan Left Behind and ended up really liking it. Of course it is a one-trick pony though, so like you pretty much have one like mid-tone matte shade. It's kind of similar to the Melt She's and Parties palette, where you have like one mid-tone matte shade and then you have like 2 deep shades which are kind of interchangeable, and like some light shades that are way too light, and then some like metallics. So I basically can get like 2 different looks out of this palette, which is like not the greatest for a 10 pan palette. It's fine quality, and even though I don't like pink eyeshadow, that's probably like, other than red, which I never do, pink is probably the eyeshadow that I wear the least. If I do want to do something pink, like an everyday pink look, I reach for this palette. If you saw my I lost all of my makeup video, which I'll link in my description, spoiler, this was the palette that I chose, the only eyeshadow palette that I chose, but this will not be what I would choose to keep if I could only keep one from my e.l.f. Cosmetics palettes because of the quality issue. I also would not keep this palette, even though it's perfectly fine to use, like I said in my Project Level Up update that I uploaded. It might have been just my last video, so definitely check that one out. But I wouldn't keep this because I get the exact same look every single time I wear this. The look that I did in that update is the look that I do every single time. I use all 4 shades in the same look, so definitely would not keep this one either. I truly love this palette so much. I think the only thing is this green has to be built up so much to show up, but once you do build it up, it's a really great shade. Other than that, I love this palette so much. It's absolutely beautiful, and I love green, and I even love throwing the yellow in there when I just want a little extra color. But I already have greens in my other palette, so for that reason, because it's just like pretty much a monochromatic 4-pan palette where I get nearly the same look every time I use it, and I have other greens elsewhere, I wouldn't choose it. It really came down to the Truffles palette and the Rose Gold palette. I always say that if you watch my palette wardrobe video, which if I can remember to link all these videos, I'll link it in my description box as well. But this is my New Year's palette ever since I've had this. So for the last 3 New Year's, I've worn this eyeshadow palette on like New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. It's kind of become a tradition for me, like my own personal tradition, even though like I don't think anyone notices or cares, but I just love it because it's super simple, it's great quality. But if I had to choose in this moment which I would pick the rose gold, because this one is getting older.
This is my oldest quad from e.l.f. that I have. It's like a little bit over 2 years old at this point, and the quality is starting to go. So the brown doesn't show up, or it doesn't stick to the eye as well as it once did. That's how I was able to get pans so easily, because I had to build it up so much. So I think because the quality is declining on this one, as honestly e.l.f. palettes tend to do, after a really solid year of these eyeshadows, they start to decline. So that's a warning I'll give you. If you don't use your eyeshadows very quickly, maybe don't buy e.l.f. eyeshadows.
But anyway, because of the quality thing, and only because of that, I wouldn't choose this one. I would choose my rose gold palette just because the quality on this is still perfectly fine. And I do have my Juvia's Place like berry palette that does have pinks that I love, but those are super bright pinks, and this one has everyday pinks. So on the very rare occasion that I do want to do a pink look, this is probably the palette that I would reach for like an icy pink look, or even a more warm toned rose gold. But if this still was at its original quality, I probably would have picked this one. Since I mentioned Melt, I'll talk about that next. I have 4 palettes from Melt Cosmetics. The first one I ever got was the Melt Mary Jane. As soon as I saw this, I fell in love with this palette. I repurchased it because I lost my other one, and then when I found it, I gave it to my mom. I love this palette. You would know that if you've seen pretty much any of my videos. I talk about this all the time, so I'm not going to talk too much about it today. This is discontinued, so I really don't want to talk about it too much because of that, but this is what it looks like. It's super stunning, and I can use every single shade in this palette, which is very rare for me, being like, I feel like if you're medium or deep, if that's your skin tone, it's really hard to use every shade in a palette that's made by like most mainstream companies. Next, I bought the She's and Parties palette, and I was saying that this one, similar to the rose gold palette, is I love it so much. Like as a purple palette, this is so beautiful, but it's just the same thing where the versatility isn't there as much. But every time I do a look with this palette, I love it anyway. So this is what it looks like. And honestly, I don't think this one is available either, which is kind of dumb. I feel like Melt is discontinuing all their best stuff, kind of like Sephora. Then I have the Melt Gemini, which is so pretty. I bought this when it was 50% off. I had been eyeing it for the longest time, and I kept telling myself I wasn't gonna buy it, but then I saw it was 50% off, and I thought it was being discontinued, so I just snatched it up. And even though it's not discontinued, and I probably could have waited a little bit longer, I don't regret buying it because I think it's really beautiful. You have your greens, and then you have your neutrals, which is pretty much my jam. That's why I love the Sigma Earthy palette so much. I don't mind the fact that there are only 2 metallics in here, because as I said, I also do love just an all matte look. But I will say the duochrome that's in here, when I use it, it doesn't show up as a duochrome on me. It only shows up as gold. So that's the one thing that I will say was disappointing about this palette. But other than that, amazing quality, like amazing quality. So I love this palette a lot, and it's really pretty as well. Then I have the Melt Brunette palette, which I'm not going to show you the packaging, the outer packaging too much, because it's really reflective. But I mean, come on, it's orange, which is like my favorite color to look at. And then this is what the palette looks like inside. So completely neutral palette. So kind of boring, but that's why I bought it. I love neutrals. I'll just say though, this is not the palette that I would choose because I only get 2 looks out of this. I get like a lighter neutral look with like this all over my lid, or I get like something a little bit deeper, and then I mix these 2 shades. Those are the only 2 looks that I do with this palette, and I wouldn't use this because it's like way too light for me. So not very versatile, but it is still a good palette. Mary Jane is obviously the winner. I mean, like, it was really, at the end of the day, it was really no contest. This is one of my absolute most favorite palettes in my entire collection. I would say this is like top 3 palettes. So yeah, it was always gonna be this palette. Onto my Pat McGrath palettes, and I'm literally having to wipe the dust away off of some of these because I haven't used some of these in so long. But okay, these 2 quads are the, let's see, this is the Interstellar Icon, which is the first Pat McGrath palette I ever bought. I actually bought this one and this one at the same time. So this is the Interstellar Icon. It is incredibly beautiful. When I saw this, I was immediately drawn to it, and I love it so much, especially this blue shade. This is my favorite blue that I have in my entire collection. It is so, it's like a duochrome, but I don't know if you'll be able to see like the flip, kind of. If I, okay, you can kind of see it, but I'm sure you already know what this palette looks like anyway. I really love it. And then I love this like deeper, kind of like drier metallic shade here. Then I have Deep Space Divinity, and this was actually the palette that I wanted to buy when I was buying Interstellar Icon. I originally wanted to buy this one, but it was like discontinued at the time, so I bought this one because it was like a little bit similar. I feel like you can kind of see the similarities in these 2 palettes. They have like both a reddish, more berry type color. Then they have, you know, a lighter neutral like inner corner shade, then a more golden, this one's like warm gold, this one is cool gold, and then they have that blue duochrome. This one is like blue and berry, and this one is blue and purple, so very similar vibes. And then the other palette that I bought in my first Pat McGrath purchase is the Eye Ecstasy Sublime Quint. I love this palette so much. I'm considering panning it for next year. I've considered panning it for like the last 2 years, so who knows if I actually will, but I love this so much. It has like this one, this is technically like a matte, but I think it's like, it has glitter in it, whatever. And then you have like these other 4 metallic shades that are such amazing quality. I know Pat McGrath is known for her special shades, but I feel like people don't appreciate all her other formulas.
Like, other than this one, because like I said, I don't like matte with glitter shades. And in fact, this shade is actually also in the, what is this? The Bronze Ambition palette. It's also in this one. But other than like the matte with glitters, Pat McGrath has such a smooth, beautiful matte formula. It's like the best matte formula I've ever tried. As far as neutrals, I can't say if her like colorful mattes are the same, but her mattes are amazing. And then her metallics are so like smooth and creamy and so beautiful, and they pop so much. And she has really beautiful colors. Like, I almost never wear this type of shade, but I would wear it when I'm using this palette because it's so beautiful and such good quality. So this is discontinued, so I'm sorry for talking about it, but I think people really sleep on her like non-special shades.
But anyway, I mentioned the Bronze Ambition. I always call it the Bronze Ecstasy. This is what this palette looks like. I bought this one and then also the Deep Space Divinity, both in a vault sale. So these were both discontinued, and then I bought them when she was releasing them again for a limited time. And even though I had like lusted over this palette for so long, and I had been thinking about it, kind of like the Natasha Denona Metropolis, once I got it, even though I still love this and it's great quality, and I actually wear this every Thanksgiving because I just feel like it has great Thanksgiving colors. It's not my favorite Pat McGrath palette, but it is still really beautiful and I do love it, and I'm glad that I have it. And then the last one is my most recent purchase from Pat McGrath, and that is, I think this one is, yeah, this one is Bronze Ecstasy from her holiday 2023 release in the Bijou Brilliance collection. This palette is so beautiful, and I feel like, again, people overlook this collection because I think in recent years people have been getting kind of sick of Pat McGrath eyeshadows because they've been, in their opinion, lackluster. But I think because people kind of just stopped looking at her eyeshadow, they overlooked how amazing this release was and they didn't appreciate it. And this is like, this is such a great eyeshadow palette. I think it would really come down to, even though I love this palette, I'm not going to open it up again, but this Quint, I love it so much. But I just think because I haven't used it too much since I originally bought it, realistically, even though like in theory I would miss this palette so much because it's like one of the most beautiful palettes that I own, in reality I wouldn't miss it as much as these others. So it's down to the Interstellar Icon and the Bronze Ecstasy, and this is really actually like really tough because in the short time that I've had this palette, I love it so much, and it's a really great palette to have. The quality is there, of course, and the looks are really beautiful. I do like 2 different go-to looks with this, but I feel like ultimately I would keep the Interstellar Icon just because of this blue. It's like so beautiful. I remember doing a look with this when this was in my No Pen Left Behind, I think in January, and that's still one of my most favorite looks I've done the entire year. I still remember it vividly. I can picture it in my mind, and I loved it so much. So I would keep my Interstellar Icon, but I would really miss this, don't get me wrong. I'd miss all of my Pat McGrath palettes, really. I feel like I saved the best for last. This is definitely the brand that I have the most eyeshadow palettes from, which, say it with me, Dose of Colors. I have, let me count, okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I have 11 palettes from Dose of Colors, and counting, because I feel like whatever they release next I probably will buy. So I have the She's a 10 eyeshadow palette, my most recent palette purchase. The 9 Years Later, which was, this was like their 10-year anniversary release, and this was their 9-year anniversary release along with the 9 Years Ago palette, but I didn't buy that one. So this is what the She's a 10 palette looks like. Super stunning. When I took my little break, I was literally scrolling through Instagram and I saw this palette and I didn't realize that's what it was, and I was like, oh my god, what is that? And I clicked on it and I was like, I already own it. This is the 9 Years Later palette. Really nice. I've grown a new appreciation for it while it's been in my No Pen Left Behind series. That series is really working out for me this year. I highly recommend it. Then I have all of my 5-pan palettes, and these are broken up into like the special ones that have both mattes and shimmers, and then they're all matte ones. So the ones that have mattes and shimmers are, let me open these first. So we have Smoky Soiree, which at one point in like early 2022 was one of my favorite palettes in my collection. This is what it looks like. I actually have not used it since then, but I will use it this year in my No Pen Left Behind. And then we have Golden Hour, which looks like this. I have yet to use this one at all. Then we have Cutting Edge, which I also have not used, which is crazy because it's like a green neutral palette, and that's, as I keep saying, that's my jam. So these eventually will be used, but I really am ashamed of myself. We have the original Big Browns, which looks like this. I haven't used this in such a long time, but it is a nice palette, and again, phenomenal quality. All of these, okay, out of all of them, this has like the worst quality, but it's still good quality because how many times can I say that word? But Dose of Colors has my favorite formula, as I said. I love the formula in all of these palettes. Big Browns 2, which is currently in my No Pen Left Behind, but I have yet to use it actually. It still has the little eyeshadow brush because I had to repurchase this because my first one went bad. So that was annoying, but this is Big Browns 2, and I actually do, as I was saying in that series, I prefer this color story over the Big Browns 1. Blushing Berries, which I thought this was going to be my least favorite out of all of these palettes, like the monochromatic ones when I bought them in the set, but I do really like this actually for like a winter berry look. It gets like pretty deep, but it also can go bright, and it's really pretty, and like I said, I love all matte looks on me. Then I have the Marvelous Mauves palette, which is so beautiful. I love these shades on myself. It has mauve, and it also has like those brighter lilacs. just like I was saying with the berry palette, and it also is a really nice companion palette with some other purple shades. Then I have Sassy Siennas. I think I've only used this once, maybe. I might have possibly never used this. I can't really remember too well. It's really pretty, but clearly it's not too memorable, unfortunately. And last up, I have the Pretty Cool palette, which I've talked about this a lot as well. I absolutely love this palette because this is the one that got me into cool tones originally. I do have an extreme appreciation for this palette. I love it so much, but I feel like if you've seen any of my other palette tag videos, you would know which one I'm choosing, and the clear winner is the Dose of Color She's a 10 palette, my most recent palette purchase from them.
I love this so much. Not only is this somehow the formula got even better than these 5-pan palettes. I don't know how they did it, but they really hit like the ultimate eyeshadow formula when they did this palette. The mattes are so pigmented yet easy to blend, and they're so smooth. They're never ever patchy. The metallics they just glide on so easily. I always use a glitter primer under any non-matte shade anyway, but they're so beautiful and smooth, and they're not like chunky or anything. And then the like sparkly shades really pack a punch. They're so sparkly and beautiful, and the color story is so amazing. Like, it's a neutral palette but with a twist. Like, you have this red shade in here, and this is the only red shade that I like on myself. It's so pretty because it is more of that earthy red, and it shows up perfectly true to color, just like every other shade in this palette. Because my biggest pet peeve with eyeshadow, other than matte with glitter, is when eyeshadows do not show up true to color as they are in the pan, and what you see is what you get when you buy a Dose of Colors palette, and I love that.
But with that, finally, I have reached the end of this video. When I sat down to film this, I honestly didn't think it would be this much of an undertaking, but here I am. Let me know if you would have chosen anything different, or if you've done any video like this. I definitely want to watch it, so please let me know. But sorry, my finger just cracked. I feel like on a different day, possibly some of these answers could have changed, like especially with my Pat McGrath, or maybe even with my ABH especially. That one was really hard. That was probably the hardest decision out of all of them. Yeah, that's all I have for you. Now let me go edit this extremely long video, and I'll see you in my next one. I hope you have a great day. Bye.